All right. Welcome back to Salty Saints. My name is Hayden Holm. I'm joined today by a wonderful panel of guests. We've got Dan Ockey, the OG Roundtable Elders Quorum president. We've got Sam from Through the Mist. We've got my brother
Hello.
Tanner. We should have Tember, who may be jumping on in a little bit, and potentially even Justin Keate. So should be a good time. So we did a video on ministering a few days ago, and it generated so many comments, and the comments were so scattered in terms of how people feel about ministering. The main vibe that I got for the average member, it seems like ministering, people feel about as confused about ministering as Jojo Siwa feels about Pride Month now. So
Jeez.
I brought you guys together. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, how could we help these brethren? How could we help the members to get a better handle on what ministering is and how we might be able to improve ministering? Maybe even troubleshoot a few out of the box ideas. But I've got a couple comments that we can go through, and we'll just start picking your brain. How does that sound?
Yeah,
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Tember's back.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
You missed my Jojo Siwa comment, but I'll tell you after.
The rest of us will never forget it.
Yeah,
That's right.
It was a comment. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Okay, so let's go into our first comment here. This is from Spam Salad 251. He says, I've always struggled with the concept of ministering companionships. In my experience, it's been really hard to get to know a companion, then to get to know your assigned families, and then to try and coordinate all your schedules to somehow become active participants in each other's lives. Most of the times, I have not been able to reach a ministering companion and wind up going myself or with my wife or oldest son. I've also wondered if ministering would have better results if the men were only assigned to minister to other men and not to households like the Relief Society sisters. It's hard enough to connect with another brother, but to try and connect with him and his whole family, that's a real feat. What do we think about that? Ooh, Sam, bit of a reaction there. Let's go.
Oh man, put me on the spot like that. Was this
Yeah.
Elders Quorum Sunday?
Yeah, that's right.
Let me just look at the ground for a bit. No, no. I mean, I think that the way that the sisters do it is not much different than the way that the brothers do it. One thing that I always kind of try to do as an Elders Quorum president when I was like putting together ministering assignments was kind of focus on, okay, well, the sisters have this assignment done up. And with that understanding with the Relief Society, having them understand that those sisters also have husbands who have the priesthood, so that if the sisters need a blessing, if they've found that a sister that they minister to needs a blessing, they can go to their husbands and say, hey, this sister needs a blessing. So it's almost like doubling up. So
Right.
in some wards, you'll have like a ministering brother set and a ministering sister set to a family. So it's like extra people.
Yeah.
And I like that.
I tell you what, when they came out with the concept of being able to go ministering with your spouse, that was a game changer. I know so many brethren that just prefer being assigned with their spouse precisely because of that reason, because it is super, super hard to coordinate with someone else's schedule and then to align that with everyone else's schedule. Then it is to just go to your spouse and say like, hey, you got the cookies, let's go. And let's just visit these families. Dan, I see your reaction. You got something you want to say?
Yeah, I think there was 3 points that he brought up. One was it's super hard to connect with your ministering companion and then coordinate together of how to go establish a relationship with this other family and actually become active participants. And then I forgot what the other 2 points were, but that one's been sticking with me. I agree with it. I think it is hard, and I don't know about you, but I've sat through the Elders Quorum lessons where it's like, we're going to take the next 30 minutes and we're going to get to know our ministering companions. And I don't know how much is, hi, now I awkwardly know to avoid you at church. So
Right.
Wait, who should I avoid? Oh, okay, it's you. Great.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I think there's well-intended people. I think there are powerhouse ministering brothers that exist in the church. I think they're the minority. And so what do you do? How do you solve that? I do think that the ministering people that serve as spouses tend to be more effective because they're focused together. It's like, this is our family assignment. Now, with that said, there are growing numbers of households where there is no ministering brother, there is no husband, or there is a single sister household and things like that. And so I understand the challenge of how do you make this completely holistic plan for every person in the church. You have to have some flexibility. I think in a perfect world, it's household to household. I just don't think we have a perfect household church as far as family units go. Therefore, we have to make adjustments and go from there. And so,
Right.
I understand the conflict. I don't know if there's a clear solution to how do we make it easier for you to get to know your other equally as busy ministry companion. I don't know. I think that's a great question and a great point that I think almost everyone feels.
Right. Right. Tember, you look like you're going to say something.
Sorry, I was unmuting myself. That's a challenging one for me because I speak from personal experience where I have had and may still currently have a ministering companion who isn't exactly proactive.
He doesn't watch this channel, does he?
I hope not. I don't think so.
This will be a call out.
He does after tonight.
That's right.
I'm trying to be vague about this, okay?
Okay, all right.
And so I'll be totally frank. Like I've tried a lot to get my ministering companion to be proactive with me and to like make appointments and stuff, but it usually doesn't happen unless I set it up. So and that can be really discouraging to the point where maybe I don't do it for a few weeks or a month, and then I'm like, okay, you know what, I get it. I just have to accept the fact that I'm going to have to set this up every time.
Right.
And but I another point is that if my ministering companion isn't going to be proactive with me in setting up things, I just have to do it myself. And I don't mean that in a prideful way where it's like I'm taking the full credit for doing everything. I try whenever I do anything with my mentoring families, like let's say bring over cookies or something, which I like to do. I like to bake. And so I'll bake some cookies and I'll bring it over to my ministering families. I always try to say, hey, me and my ministering companion brought this over for you. And so involving him and making sure he knows that I involved him in that act. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to this, but I'm like, if he's not gonna participate or be proactive in it, I'm just gonna do it anyway.
Good
and
for you. Yeah.
Involve his name in there, slip his name in there, and let them know, like, hey, this individual is your ministering companion too. It's not just me. So,
Okay.
yeah, I have other things to say, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, it touches down. There's a comment that really, I think, drives home the point that you're getting at. It says, this is from Ben H7581. It says, I actually think ministering, much like home teaching, is difficult for a number of reasons, which make it hard for most people to meet this challenge. First, we get teamed up with some loser that we can never get a hold of. Spicy words, but he says, and never come with us to go and do the visits. Second, we get families who have absolutely no interest in having us visit either because they are doing good or because they want nothing to do with the church. Third, they assign you like 500 families, which is especially bizarre since there's not that many families in the ward to begin with to go and visit because you're willing to put forth any effort if your companion isn't. And that's very daunting to try and fulfill that task. Last, they always want to assign you with inactive families and completely ignore the active families because they're under some delusion that active members don't need any friends or help from the ward to remain active. There's my 2 cents. Why don't you guys talk about that?
2 cents.
Gotcha.
That was like
okay,
98
sorry.
cents.
that was,
Can I
that was
jump
2
in there?
Bitcoin right there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Go,
that
jump away.
was
Jump
kind of
away.
that was kind of going on with my other comment.
Yeah.
I have three families right now who are super active. One is in the stake presidency. So it's like I have these families who are super active. And every time we ask, how can we serve you? How can we help you? It's always, oh, hey, we're good. We don't really need anything. And so I don't really know how to help out there. But I think this is something we should really discuss, is that ministering is a lot more than just who you're assigned to. And you can do a lot more ministering with those in your immediate sphere of influence, like your neighbors surrounding you, than maybe the people you are officially assigned to. And so that's how I see it personally, is like I live in townhomes, and I've done a lot of work to try and get to know my neighbors. And I've had a lot of great opportunities and gospel discussions with them that I haven't necessarily had with my assigned families. Not
Right.
that I don't try, obviously, but I don't know. That's just a different perspective to take.
There's already a repeating pattern of kind of like, should I go visit, and getting my companion to go visit with me. And I've heard this again and again. Here, I just want to know from you guys, do you want ministers to come visit you regularly in your house?
No.
Yeah.
That's a good question. No. As a young father, I do not. Like, as a young father, for me, I would rather have like a gym buddy, a running partner. I would rather have someone invite me to go fishing, or someone to take me on hikes, or someone that's just like, hey, you want to go grab lunch or something like that? That is what I want, because
I didn't
need
know
a
those were
break
options.
from my wife and kids. Yeah, those aren't options. I mean, I've been ministered to twice since they rolled out the program, and it was just it was a drive-by. It was just like, here's your cookies. See you later, and then they just ran. And then it was another companionship that threw some kisses at us, and it was just like, who was that? Oh, those were our ministering brothers. What were their names?
They threw
I don't know. They
kisses
didn't
at
say.
you.
Yeah.
Just winking at you in church, ministering. Yep.
Yeah. Boom.
The nod. Yeah.
It's like that. Go ahead.
I love that. Just like right off the bat, all of you are like, nah.
Yeah.
I don't want that. But I would like a friend. I would like somebody to do stuff with.
Certainly.
The other side of that too, that an older family may, an older couple may like visitors. But
Totally.
I think the idea behind ministering is this really can be customized, but it really does depend on you getting to know the family. And there's an individual responsibility, and just like Tember was saying, to get to know whoever that is, regardless of what my companion does. And the odds are that we're going to have 2 brothers who want to completely minister to a family all in is so low. And so if you're willing to do it, then you're going to do what they're going to do. We can't control them. But getting to know that family and understanding, do they like fishing? Do they like running? Do they want to be, are they an older couple who wants to be visited? Are they an active member who wants absolutely nothing to do with the church? Great. Easiest ministering assignment ever.
That's right. Yeah.
And you're there if they need you, but you had a conversation. Look, I want to respect what you want. Do you want me to come over once in a while and say hi? No? Okay, I respect that. Are you okay if I check in 6 months from now? Awesome.
I still feel guilty though, because like people can say that, no, I'm okay, I'm good, I don't need you to come in, like just check in with me every so often. But from personal experience, I know, as like someone who struggles with mental illness, I say that to people that I'm not close to, that I do need help. I do need someone to come and check on me, but I don't feel you have a relationship with me that I can trust you enough to divulge my issues with. So I'm not going to go to my minister. I'm going to go to someone else. But a lot of the times, to be honest, I don't have that someone else. So I don't know. That's a hard thing for me, because like people can say all the time that, yeah, I don't need the support, I don't need you coming by, but they really do. So I I don't know. I honestly don't know how to gauge that.
Well, I think one of the difficulties that a lot of quorums face is that idea of, like, there's another filter that we didn't address in the first video, and that filter is activity level, like the
Hmm.
dedication to ministering. And so one of the guidelines in the handbook says that you should assign more dedicated ministers to the higher need families, which means that the people that are actually going to do it are going to be assigned to the families that are going to appreciate it the least, which is kind of
Mm.
frustrating, So
Yeah.
these families that are out there that are like, get out of here, so the active dedicated ministers are the ones that are facing rejection, and then everyone else are, I guess, dealing with the ministers that are less dedicated, and so it leaves, I guess, a little bit of malnourishment going on with the active members, which I think this brother was pointing out. And I think
Mhm.
most of you, I mean, I don't know if any of you have really great ministering companions or ministering brothers that come by and check in on you regularly, but
Mhm.
I think, I mean, for me, I don't know that I have. I think, like, if you are at a certain level of activity, I think it you can expect to see them maybe just in passing in the hallway, and they'll give you like a side eye, and you'll be like, and they'll be like, done. I did it.
More often than not, it's that. To be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah.
So I'm actually interested to know, since we have people that have been within church leadership in this like panel, the methodologies behind assigning ministers. So there's the handbook way, and then there's like when the boots hit the ground and you have 800 members in your ward.
Yes.
Boundaries.
Yes.
Kind of going to the question or the statement that was brought up by the previous individual, where it's like, oh, I got to sign all these families, and I'm like, yeah, you potentially did, right?
Yeah.
And you probably don't know them because they're not active, but they're on the rolls.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, and I'll just kind of start this off with,
Dive into it. Yeah.
two different methodologies that I took to approaching this. The first was make sure everyone is ministered to. This was the first method I took. I quickly found out that there's a lot of members in the 800 members within our roles that are on the rolls that we just don't know. We have zero idea who they are.
Yeah.
And so instead, my later method was to take everybody off the rolls who is not active at all. So I only had active people on there in the ministering assignments. And then I started to add people in as I sent the companions out. So I sent the companions out to families, and I said, I need you to report back on these 4 families, these 5 families. And then from there, I took the interest in what they learned about the families and I added them into either theirs or added them into somebody who I knew based off of interviews who would better suit that family. Right. And so I slowly started adding them back in onto the list. Now I didn't actually get to every person. And we have plenty of members that no longer lived at those locations, and we had to move records. But that's the problem of being in a more transient ward, being in a military area. But yeah, so like you're gonna have people, and within that, you're gonna have people that are inactive on your ministering assignments. But even then, with the ministering companions that I interviewed, I said, hey, I want each of you guys to focus on one family. If you're gonna give your effort in the ministering, focus it on one person, the max. Give your max effort to one person. With my hope with that was that as they do that with that one person becomes active again, and then now we have an additional person that can go and minister to somebody else. Right? It's focusing on the one so that we can focus on more of the one.
Ooh, I like that. I really like that approach. Last Saturday, we had a general priesthood stake meeting, and they brought up ministering because, surprise, surprise, I don't think it's really happening too much in the stake, but so they showed this video, and I thought it was really cool. It was one of the Bible videos, which I'm still hoping that we can get Dallas Jenkins in there, but it was one of the Bible videos that it was the Savior with Peter on the shore after his resurrection, and where he sits down and he's like, lovest thou me? And he asks him 3 times, and Peter says, yea, Lord, I love thee. And he says, then feed my sheep. And so he said that 3 times. And I guess the main takeaway was, from a ministering perspective, we minister to feed the sheep of the Savior. And I think I really love what you're getting at there, Sam, because I think it points at maybe a cultural tradition that we brought with us from the home teaching program of like everyone needs an assignment and everyone should be ministering to each other. Where if you actually look at the sheep from like a scriptural standpoint, the sheep are those who hear the words of the Savior and follow him. They recognize the voice of the master and they follow him. The ones that are like hungry and thirsty after the word. And so I look at that and I'm like, wait a second, what if we are actually starving the people that would be most receptive to ministering right now? When Elder Holland spoke about ministering in 2018, let me see. I got his quote right here. He says, blah, 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 blah. He says, we have a heaven-sent opportunity as an entire church to demonstrate pure religion undefiled before God, to bear one another's burdens that they may be light, to comfort those that stand in need of comfort, to minister to the widows and the fatherless. And I think everyone's on board with that. Everyone's like, yep, let's get the widows, let's get the fatherless. Absolutely, hands down. Yep, we need to do that. The married and the single. It's like, well, wait a second. He says, the strong and the distraught, the downtrodden and the robust, the happy and the sad. In short, all of us. And I'm like, wait a second. He says, because we all need to feel the warm hand of friendship and hear the firm declaration of faith. I wonder if one of the cultural traditions that we brought with us is just like ministering mainly applies to less active members. Ministering mainly applies to people. We almost view it as like missionary work. It's like, hey, we got to be missionaries, because like everyone who served a mission and you focused on the less actives and you tried to reactivate them, or the inactive members, and you're like, let's reactivate these members and stuff like that. And it feels like ministering has almost adopted that model where it's like, all right, let's go out to people who are not coming to church regularly. But I think if we do that, there are a handful of people that are just dying on the vine. There are members that are coming to church that are not finding brotherhood, that are not finding ministering efforts actually being done, that are just like, I'm struggling, I need help. And they're trying to check in, they're trying to do their best, but may be neglected in that effort. And then that might drive them into inactivity. And then they'll get good ministers.
See, that's the real turnoff, though, is like when you know that someone has flipped the missionary switch, and they're coming to activate you again, it feels completely disingenuous, right? So it's like, okay, you're going to come and minister to me until I keep going back to church. And then as soon as I'm active again, you're going to pretend like I don't exist again. I was like, that doesn't feel super, it doesn't feel great.
Ooh, in the feels.
Yeah.
It seems like the main premise here is members of the church. I love the concept of what you said is basically the sheep. Who are the sheep already in the pasture? We're always going after and we always have the analogy of going after the one. That's true. And I think there's a place for that too. But I think you're right. I think a lot of times we put this as a reactivation effort rather than how do we make sure that brother so and so who's already coming every Sunday feels like he has friends and wants to come, and feels like, and feels a part of a quorum, feels a part of the church. It feels like his church community. So
maybe before we go after the one, maybe we go after the 90 and 9 is what, it's like, hey, maybe we try and bring them in, the ones that want to be here, strengthen them, make sure that they're good to go. And then while everyone's here, they're rallied, they're strong. Then we focus on the one.
Well, it is easier to go after the one when you have a strong flock, when you have a strong and sometimes we assume the 99 are stronger than they actually.
Yeah. Tember, you gave a gasp over there.
Yeah, just talking about this, I feel like sometimes people who are in those who may be inactive or struggling in their faith or whatever may at times feel like they're a project. Like they notice when they get more effort from their ministers or from the word counts or whatever
they do
when they're going through something. And it's like, I think we need to be careful about seeing people like that less as a project and learning instead more how to love them and developing charity for that individual and genuinely loving them rather than saying, oh, how can I reactivate this person? How can I
Yeah.
get them back to church? There's obviously a reason why they're not coming to church or why they're struggling. And maybe the best that we can do is just be that friend. And sometimes, just bringing them, I'm going to go back to the cookies, and the cookie activity that I love is maybe we just bring them cookies without inviting them to the church sometimes.
And you're
Maybe
not the
that's
only one that loves
heretical.
cookies. I think that's written in the handbook. It's like drop off the cookies because I think that's everyone's go-to strategy. Yeah.
Except they have to be almond Italian
Well,
amaretti.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm
those
sure
are the best.
you've got some
Oh,
like
wow.
Mediterranean something going on. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, bring them something exotic, so they really know
Yeah.
you tried hard.
That's
it is-
right.
It is hard
Bring
to
them some
establish-
sushi.
Yeah. Oh,
No.
well, maybe
Yeah,
that's,
there we go.
maybe that's what we're missing right there. is we've been bringing
Yeah.
cookies and we should have been bringing sushi.
Sushi.
That's right.
Oh,
No,
man.
but I
think that's
totally
it.
I get that. There was one couple that in one of the wards that I was in where like the sister, the wife, she was serving in the young women's, the brother, he was a youth Sunday school teacher. They were both by all appearances, they were active. They had a baby, they started coming less, and then eventually they just stopped coming entirely. And then their names got kicked up to the ward council and they knew immediately. And they reached out that week and they were like, hey, we get that you guys are talking about us in ward council, but we're trying to take a step back right now. Okay. And it's like, yeah, they know what's going on. It's like, and so it makes it super weird now because it's like anyone that's trying to bring up any kind of genuine conversation with them that's not from the ward council, because we almost bombard them. We're like, let's get them. Oh no, we lost one. And so we're playing. We're trying to recover that. We're trying to firefight instead of trying to prevent the fire from starting in the first place.
Yeah.
I think go ahead, Kimber.
No, I was just gonna say it goes back to, are we really forming genuine relationships out of just authenticity, or is this all just because we want to be good missionaries? So I think we should be good missionaries, and missionary work comes out through our authentic relationships, but it feels fake to individuals, and they can feel it when it's just you trying to be the fake friend to bring the gospel into their life.
Right.
It's like we have a neighbor right next to us, for instance, who she's inactive, and she'll come to church maybe like every 6 months or so, and we love her to death. She's a great lady, and we'll like have her over and stuff, but that's because we genuinely love her.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to push any agenda, but when my daughter's going to get baptized next year, of course we'll invite her, but it's not because like we're trying. I would love to see her become more active and go to the temple and stuff, but
right.
That's not. I'm not inviting her over because I wanted to get her to go to church. So
right. So the invitation then becomes normal and natural. So like you extending an invitation to re-engage with the ward is a normal and natural thing because you actually have a relationship with that person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what the brother keeps saying. Apparently we are really weird in the church. They're just like normal and natural, please, you people. Stop being weird. So real quick, Tanner, do we have any chats that we need to catch up on?
Yeah, Harambe Boy says we need more men like Tember leading the church. So there you go. You got a fan in Harambe Boy.
I do not want to be in any leadership capacity, but I would love to be a teacher. I love that. That's great.
There you go. And Deej says, howdy, folks. So, hey, Deej. I
was happy to see Deej.
Yeah, I want to go back and give the mic back to Sam for a minute because I really want to hear how things changed in his ward after he implemented that change. I'm really curious as to the results there because that seems like a big shift to focus inward on the active and then slowly pull people in. So how did that go?
Well, I will say that I am now in a new ward, so I'm currently out of it.
So terrible. It went very bad.
As of 2 weeks ago, they they specifically
forced him
because of
out.
that they literally drew the boundaries around my house and said you're in a new ward now.
They gerrymandered you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
I'm
done.
just kidding. But no, I'm in a new ward now, so I mean I don't know how they're gonna end up doing it. They actually lost all of the leadership in that ward
Oh,
to
shoot.
this new ward.
Oh.
But I don't know. Like I think it potentially could work depending on the dynamic of the ward, right? Like at the end of the day, I truly do believe that the insight that you get with those leadership callings, or even just being a member of a ward family, are structured and geared around your ward. Like there's not, I don't think that there's a cookie cutter model, generally speaking, right? There's overall principles like that guide all of our actions, but that work for each ward in particular. And so for us, being as we have kind of a more diverse and spread out group, I think that potentially could have worked fairly well for the ward, but that could just be
Well, I
me
love
puffing
that
up my own
idea.
idea, of course.
No. I think it's great. I'll give it a couple puffs there too. But here's the deal: is the thing that I really like about that is it seems like it would be an effective way to combat ministering overwhelm. Because I feel like a lot of people, a lot of active members, if you are going to be active, you are going to have a lot of ministering assignments. So you will likely have an inactive companion. And like in my last ward, we had maybe like 5 or 6 inactive families that we were given. And it's just like to the average active father who's got a lot of young kids, who's maybe not getting in super great sleep, and who has a leadership calling already. It's like you look at down the barrel of that and you're just like, clearly you're going to get strength from your calling. The Lord will strengthen you and help you accomplish that. But still, I worry that it may become, I think the average person is going to look at that and say, like, I don't even know where to start. Like, this is just so much work to do, and to try and do a good job with. Where I love that idea of just saying, like, maybe just focus on one person, one family. Now, my main question is, did you have them pick that person?
Yes.
So they picked their assignment. Is that right?
Yeah. So in the counseling, and it typically went along the lines of, hey, I have assigned you additional families that are less active. And these families would be families that like potentially nobody in the ward knew. So like completely unknowns. And my invitation to them was, hey, you have some families that attend church fairly regularly. Go down this list and pick one family where you individually, aside from your companionship, you can focus a majority of your effort on them. And with that, like each companion had that assignment. So it wasn't just both the companions were focusing on one family. It was one person within that companionship was focusing on one family. And so, not everybody wants to be ministered to. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, right? And like, it is what it is.
Shots fired. Look at that.
You can put it on there, but like, I would have been perfectly okay with not having formally assigned ministers to my family. Like, because I know, right? Hot take.
Sam.
I think the reason being is I felt like I could reach out to any person within the ward and be like, hey, I need help with this, or I need a blessing. Can you do that? But perhaps that might have came from being in the Elders Quorum presidency and getting to know a lot of the brethren in the ward. So potentially there's that. And so I understand that not everyone has that opportunity or has that that same like connection with their ward, but like my ministers were great. Like, but they did exactly what I needed from them, which is like, they would talk to my family occasionally. They would come over if needed. Actually, one of my ministers invited me over to his house, and we did a dinner with their family. That was kind of cool. And I mean, like that was okay. I knew I could trust them. Like I knew I could rely on them. If I called them in the middle of the night, I know that they would come over and help me mow my lawn, in the middle of the night. Like I know that they would do that because I know that they love me, but they didn't need to be like constantly calling me and all that stuff. And I understand some people need something completely different, but
I really like the idea of not overwhelming the ministers, and I think it's really easy to do, especially when you have a big ward list. Because it's like we just got to give everybody an assignment. We've got to have all the families assigned, and I just don't think that makes sense. And
it's not feasible.
It's not feasible, and it's a great way to just have people do nothing. And so
exactly. And that's the thing. I wanted them to do something and feel like they could do something effectively.
Mm.
And
Right.
then obviously the thing that they're doing effectively is actually like getting to know that family. And like I said, if it was the case that that ministering family that they're, or the family they're ministering to needed a different ministering family, then I would just reassign that family. And that'd be okay. But
That's awesome.
one
Yeah.
thing, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One thing that was worth establishing, how do we find who the people to assign as ministering assignments or to minister to, is we did that just helped save a lot of time, was for our ward Christmas party, we mailed out invitations to every single person on the list. And so that then brought back all the addresses that were now invalid. So then we, those people who had moved, instead of having to go find their house and talk to somebody, we had 10 households. It's like, these people no longer live here. We don't know where they've gone. We can give those to the ward clerk. These are now, we know we don't need to worry about these ones anymore. And then we knew that all the rest of the people who we didn't get the returns back from did live there. And I just started writing them letters. And I got a response. I would get responses, and we'd just be able to establish, what do you want from the church right now? Do you want ministers? Have you joined a different church? Have you want those things? And so, and I did one letter a day just to.
That's awesome.
But that helped a ton. Just people we weren't sure if we should assign, just reaching them out as an Elders Quorum presidency to understand, should this person even be involved with be an assignment.
Now, what do you say to the people that are like, but if we have people find their own ministering assignment, then what about our duty to make sure that we're checking in on everybody, and who is going to visit the terrible, awful, really hard to get along with, rough personality types in the ward that nobody's gonna jump on? What would you say to someone like that?
If we were picking,
like they don't want to be ministered to, they're horrible and they don't want to be ministered to, or they're horrible
No,
but they do want to be ministered to.
I'm saying, like, they're horrible and maybe they want ministers to come by every now and then, but nobody, if we only do like a one family approach, where it's like, hey guys, go find your own family, then maybe some families get left out. And I think there's like this, and it's funny. There is like this big fear of wards of like appearing like cliquish or to be exclusionary of some people. And I wonder if that fear is keeping a lot of people from actually forming normal and natural groups of interests. Like, for example, in one ward, there was like this book club that my wife was a part of, and she was a part of this group, and they were meeting monthly for like a year. And then eventually one of the sisters reached out and they're like, hey guys, we're going to extend this to the entire ward. And we have big ward boundaries. And so they were like, some sisters on there were like, I don't think we need to invite everybody to this, because it is like the people, we're not excluding anybody. If somebody wants to hop in, they're more than welcome to hop into the book club, but if we open it up to be a bigger thing, then it turns into a Relief Society activity. Then it has to be held at the chapel, then that makes it difficult for people who live super far away. And then it turns into everyone just kind of disengaging from that activity, and that all became the primary reason, driver behind that decision to make it a bigger thing was like, well, we don't want to look like we're excluding anyone or we're forming a clique, and I think that might be damaging. Like that fear of excluding people. But I do enjoy the point that you made about that reverse. It goes right in line with the comment that I want to read real quick. So this is from Tyler Singleton, 9284. It says, I think that a reverse ministering program would be more useful. Make it known that it's everyone's responsibility to find a friend or friend group that they spend time with outside of everyone's responsibility at church. Then meet with leadership and have a moment where they get called to account about whether or not they are seeking out friendships. If they are struggling, then it's the leader's responsibility to help network and introduce them to possible friends. If we aren't taught that it is for our own good and that our family's good, that we have friends, then we will just grit and bear it silently. If we can hold teenagers to account for chastity issues, then why can't we ask men if they are taking care of themselves by seeking out friends?
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that brings up like a really interesting point of, there's a certain revelation component when it comes into like making ministering assignments, but can that be delegated to the actual elders and say, use your own personal revelation to find the people that you need to minister to, or to request people that you'd like to minister to you, right?
Yeah.
Can you delegate that responsibility out?
Yeah, I think Sam just turned off his camera to go find the handbook real quick. I think he's looking it up.
I have a printed copy over here.
There
Yeah,
you
that's
go.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly, I think once again, I think there's just different methods of doing it, but there is like the handbook does have it like pretty laid out.
They
I
do.
still think there's a lot of like they leave you a lot of slack to kind of work with within that sphere though. And I will say like you don't want to with the method I was trying to approach, there wouldn't have been a family that wasn't ministered to. It just would have looked a little bit different as far as the amount of perceived attention given to each family. Instead of giving each family 5% of their time, it would have been 95 and fractions of time for the other ones as they identify those families to once again kind of hone in on and focus on. But because I will say, so my personal story, I was the benefit of my bishop ministering to me. And one of the things he did was because he was consistent and consistently came to my house, oftentimes at a whim's notice, like, hey, you're going to be at your house in, 20 minutes and can I stop by for, to bring whatever? I'm just like, oh man, I don't know. Yeah, I guess. But, that
Classic bishop.
that consistency of him coming was very beneficial to me. And, but I think I was in a headspace where like that would have worked for me. And I do think that there's individuals who you go to minister to them like, I don't want you guys to be here. I don't want people ministering to me. And that's the headspace for that time. And perhaps, engaging them every week or every month or quarterly isn't exactly what they need, but we eventually we need to keep engaging with them over time.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think that's
I
where
do
like
agree with that. Yeah.
as presidency's keeping like, I don't want to say keeping records or tabs, but like having an understanding. And that's why I think it's important for an Elders Quorum presidency, or at least the president, to be like consistent for at least, a little bit longer than a couple years.
Totally.
Because that's when you start to actually get an understanding of like, I know all these families because I've been there,
Yeah.
So.
Well, it reminds me, like in my past ward, I was in the Elders Quorum presidency, and it was a hyper transient ward. Like we were constantly doing mission, like ministering assignments every single week because we had students moving in and out of the ward. And one of the things that we did was we made sure that we just pounced on these families as soon as they came into the ward. We were just like immediately over there as a presidency, and we would sit down with them and we would ask them 2 questions. A, do you want to be ministered to? Yes or no, And then if they said yes, then we would make a note on that and say, okay, this family wants to be ministered to. And then the second one was, would you like a ministering assignment? And then they would either say yes or no. And we got people that were like, yeah, sure, I would love a ministering assignment. Other people that were like, yeah, no, I don't want a ministering assignment, but I do want people checking in on me, And so that information was pretty valuable as a presidency to have, because then we were able to compile that and say, okay, we've got all of these families. And to your point of saying, like, not everyone wants a ministering assignment, not everyone needs a ministering family, but it gave us enough information to compile like a do not contact list, which was able to offload a little bit some of the assignment that was given to the active ministers of like, hey, these are families that they say they don't want anything, so we can now just offload that. Now we did have like still, even with that, I feel like there was an imbalance of more people saying I would rather have ministers than people that said I would be comfortable ministering. So it ended up with every active ministering companionship having like 6 families on their plate to deal with, which is still a lot. Yeah. Dan, I'm seeing a big smile over there. Why don't you give us your
I'm
thoughts?
just laughing at I like the benefit, but I don't want to bake the bread.
That's right. Yeah, the little red hen right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But here's one thing I'm thinking about as I'm listening to y'all is there's another side to this, which is what you just did, going out and actually talking to the individuals about ministering. So here's another question: when was the last time any of you or anyone in the chat had a ministering interview?
Oh, that's a good question.
Ooh.
Just this last Sunday, and it was the first one in a very long time.
You're
You know,
undercutting
so-
Dan's point. Come on.
I'm glad you had one.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it
My-
was
my-
yeah, it was a
I
long
was just
time
gonna
coming.
say, I was gonna say my award is pretty good. They do it once every quarter.
So you have them
Nice.
regularly.
Yeah, we have them.
And what is your perspective when you have them? What do you go into them with? What did you walk out of them with? Like, Tanner, what did you on Sunday when you got called for your ministering interview? What was your reaction? And then after the fact, how were you feeling? You're like, that was a complete waste of time. I'm glad I had that conversation. I felt heard. Where were you at? And then I'd love to hear, Temper, your experience as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm personally not super great at ministering, so my initial reaction was dread. So it's like, oh shoot,
no.
dang it,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to explain myself. So, but no, he did a great job. The brother who interviewed me, he spent 90% of the time talking to me about my family and where I'm at, and just trying to get to know me better, which was great. And at the end, he's like, "How's ministering going?" I said, "It's terrible. I'll try better." He said, "Cool." And then we bounced, So I think that he spent the time very well in the fact that he was focusing more on me rather than the actual report of who I should be ministering to, which was great to see.
You felt ministered to in the interview.
Yeah,
You
100%.
expected this is an accounting, right? But
Yeah.
instead, he just asked. He got to know you, and you wanted to talk. You felt like he understood you. You felt like he got to know you better, and genuinely wanted to get to know you better.
Yeah, and it took him a minute because I had my guard up going in, so I'm coming in, a bit with my
Coming
pants
in
down on
hot.
this one,
Yeah.
so. But he's like, dude, just chill and let's just talk, So he did a great job on that, So
Bro, chill. I don't care.
Yeah.
yeah,
Tell me
he's
what
like,
I tell you.
yeah, I have no interest in disciplining you on this thing, let's just be people.
Right.
So he did a great job on it. Yeah, I thought he really nailed it.
Cool. So I think that's really helpful just to hear too. It's like these ministering interviews, I think they're crucial to helping people feel understood and see if they're done right. It's not about did you do your ministry. It's about how are you doing, Tanner? What's going
Yeah.
on?
Right.
Absolutely, it's ministry in itself, like you said. So
Ministering to the ministry. Timber, what about you, man? How are they doing everyone?
So typically, Peyton is the guy who in the presidency. I'm comfortable giving out his name, but he's great.
Shout out to Peyton.
Peyton. He'll ask me first of all how I'm doing, and we'll chat a little bit. And I'm not super close to him, but I feel like he's a genuine guy. And he'll ask me how I'm doing, and usually give me some counsel about what they're hoping to see as a presidency. So I don't know. It's fairly milquetoast to be honest. The meetings.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person where I typically do like a little bit of an admonition or a little bit of a fire under my butt to give me some motivation. I think there's
You're a
a right way.
masochist.
Well, there's a
He brings
There's a
his own
reason-
lighter to the interview.
there's a reason a lot of people like Elder Holland and Elder Oak or President Oaks, right? Is because
Yeah.
they're straightforward, they tell it like it is, and they give loving correction when it's needed, and I kind of like that. So
No. You are touching down on a real quick, just to jump in. You are touching down on a really good point. There was a comment from a Relief Society sister who said, I don't really do my ministering, but my Relief Society president just approaches me. She asks me about ministering. I tell her I'm not really doing it, and then she always just tells me that's okay. It's fine. You're doing enough, and you are enough, and that's okay. And I'm like, I think this is what you're touching down on, is like maybe we're skewing too far onto that side where it's like, well, no, you should be doing something. There is an assignment here.
All isn't well in Zion. Okay,
Right.
all isn't well. If we have that mentality, as all is well. Hey, I'm doing my best. are you doing your best? Maybe you
Right.
should have a little bit more of an initiative and be more proactive. And I think there's a right way to do that. And yeah, like I said, personally, I like to be told when I'm doing something wrong and when I need to correct in a loving way, and I'll take the initiative to do it. If someone comes in there and is like, "Oh, you're screwing up and you guys suck and you guys need to be doing better," like that obviously isn't the way
Little
to
overkill.
approach things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be
Yeah.
honest, that kind
Probably
of
a couple
resonates
of high priests doing that. Yeah.
well, to call out myself, when I went on my mission, I was the Pharisaical missionary zone leader that was like, "Yo, elders need to shape up and stop screwing off and staying out
7
late."
for
And-
7. Yeah.
yeah, and how do you think that affected the missionaries that I was supposed to be serving? It
sure they
wasn't
loved
very
you.
good, right? They hated me. In fact, one of my missionaries in my zone, painted a swastika on a piece of paper and put it up and gave me a Heil Hitler because I was the Hitler Nazi missionary with the rules. And it's like,
Look
Wow.
at that.
I don't want to be the rule Nazi,
Well, at least
And
they can't say you weren't memorable.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's
Oh,
like that has changed my perspective, right? It's like being a rule Nazi isn't a way to help motivate people. There's a way
Right.
to do it,
Yeah, we don't want to be a hall monitor.
We don't want to be a Pharisee or a Sadducee, right?
Right.
So, but we still need to help inspire people to be better. Because we can't have that all is well in Zion mentality.
Right. So how do we do
so-
that? How do we inspire people to be a little bit better in those ministering interviews? If they aren't doing anything, they're showing up and they're used to kind of like the nice guy voice, "Oh, we just appreciate you. And we love everything that you're doing and you are enough." And and it's just like all of those Pinterest pins, all the cliches, live, laugh, love, and
You walk out with a love shirt and bite placard.
You're wearing your flare.
that's right. That's right. Oh, we sure do appreciate you. It's like, well, no, maybe, and I'd be interested to hear everyone else's thoughts, but maybe we do just say a little bit like, well, and I think it just comes from the questions that you ask them, like, just like, so can you tell me about these families, and then setting, what I found helpful being in those, on the other end of those ministering interviews was, we would ask them about the family, like how are your families doing, and if they came back and said like, honestly, I don't know, I haven't really been doing this, I'm not a good minister, I don't, then I would usually just take a step back and say, you know what, hey, you came to the interview, so that's great. We're sitting down, we're in the building, you put on your tie, you're looking sharp, that's great. So this is effort. Let's set a goal for the next time we have an interview. Can you at least just reach out to them and maybe, or if that's too much, can you pray about them? Can you at least pray for them before we meet next time? Is that okay? And then a lot of times I'd be like, well, I suppose I could pray for them. Yeah, maybe I could.
Hey, that's from the video. That's
It
from the
is.
training
Ooh,
video.
I watched the training videos and I actually applied them. I'm a
Yeah,
crazy
we
heretic
all-
over here.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's the name of the family? Can you get to know the names of the families?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
We're a bunch
so
of nerds.
That's a
at
good
that.
that's a good training video. I'm not gonna lie.
It is a
I
good
watched it at
training.
least
It's a great
5
training
times.
video.
I think I watched it at least 5 to 10 times before my first ministering interview.
Yeah.
As I was like
Awesome.
shaking with my like.
Look at that.
notepad.
So my trivia doesn't just apply to pop cinema. I'm deep in the church videos too, man. Yeah.
You quote the district and we're really there.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
My wife, when she was in early study presidency, one of the things they did that I should probably implement but haven't done is they look, like Tanner said, he came to the interview already knowing he already knows that
Right.
His
wants
tail
head's
between his
down.
legs. Yeah.
he wasn't showing up like, man, I sure hope they're going to give me some motivation, some encouragement today for the thing I already am beating myself up about. But an invitation of, hey, will you pray for this family? I'm going to write it down when we meet again in 3 months. I'm just going to follow up and see if you did that. Are you okay with that? And then let's
Totally.
build off of that from there. And they would do that, and they saw strides like, oh, there's an invitation, and also actually being followed up with the next time they met and saying, I prayed or did you pray? Like, oh snap, you actually are keeping me accountable to this, but not in a way of like, how could you not? Okay, we didn't do that. Let's try again. Why don't we say a prayer for them right now here in this meeting?
Ooh, next
As,
level.
as part of the closing prayer, whatever that may be. So just
Yeah, I like that.
Just kind of keeping that loving we don't want swastikas and Hitlers on our interviews.
We don't want to be Rex Kwon Do about it. Yeah.
I mean, no, absolutely. I mean, I do go home to Starla at night, but
do you wear American flag pants?
Only to ministering interviews.
Don't forget about it. Yeah.
My other hand, yeah. That's awesome. Real quick, we have a couple comments we should follow up on.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Looks like I can show them on the stream, which is cool. So this is from Didge, not Deej. I think he says Didge rhymes with pig. So he says, I feel like I informally minister to half a dozen people, then get asked how my families are doing, and I have to repent because I've lost track of them. So like ministering to the wrong people is a thing that happens.
He's
sometimes.
over ministering. Yeah.
Just misfiring. Because I do that all the time.
Good problem to have.
Yeah.
I hang out with, I befriend different people in the ward and then, forget to minister to my actual assignment. It's like, I could tell you about those guys over there, but the people you want me to see, I haven't done that. So,
that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good thing to bring up.
Can I just say?
Yeah.
Can I just say?
You can just say.
I've had more information to give the Elders Quorum presidency about my neighbors than my actual ministering families, and I think that's okay.
Yeah.
And not like I'm snitching on my neighbors, but I think there's
man with the swastika and the snitching on neighbors.
The COVID hotline again. Yeah.
No, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like we said, like sometimes our assigned ministering families don't need as many visits, and we could do more ministering here with our actual like neighbors close by. So I don't know. I think we need to do both, but I don't think.
Now, here's a question though: is it on the leaders to take that feedback of like, hey, I'm not really ministering to the people you assigned me to, but I am ministering to these other people? Would it be on the leader to say maybe it's time we rethink your assignment? To make it a little bit more normal and natural for you, so that you don't have to like beat yourself up because you are doing the work, you are ministering to people, and maybe this is a sign that we need to rethink your ministering assignment, pray about it. And it's like, okay, well, if these families feel more natural to you, then maybe we do that,
I've had leaders who have done that.
That's
how did that go? How did that go?
I've come to my Elders Quorum presidencies in the past and with my current one, and I've said, hey, I would really like to keep this individual family because I think we have a good relationship. Can I keep them as a ministering assignment? Because we have a fairly transient ward and we get switched around a lot, and I've asked them to do that and they've been totally open to it. So I've had a fair amount of success with that.
I feel like it's almost universally respected when you request to have a family to minister to. I don't think I've ever heard of someone requesting that from their EQ president and him being like, no.
Yeah.
So I think that's valuable to the presidencies for sure. Is that feedback and that that desire. That's awesome.
Actually,
go ahead, Sam.
That kind of goes in line with what I was thinking. Actually, when you guys were talking, it's like scheduling your ministering interview. So one of the things I wanted to get to was to the point where the ministering companionships would actually schedule with the presidency to do their ministering interviews with us. And so that allowed them.
So they were the ones that instigated the interview.
Yeah. Because
forget about it. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. The Elders Quorum I came from they're pretty good. So either that or I'd be curious to know how far in advance your Elders Quorum presidency gave you prior to your interview, because I always try to make an effort, to make it at least a week in advance. And I think that alleviated, and that wasn't always the case. But what I did realize is if I did give them some time, I had a lot more companionships who would lead with what they had to report, as opposed to like, oh yeah, who exactly? I'm rolling in there last minute, pulling up, the tools app and saying, who do you minister to again? Okay,
That's right.
you know.
Yeah.
And by the way, how are you doing? Right. But I felt like, and I have appreciated when I've gotten a little bit of a lead time.
No,
kinda
I
reach
think
out.
you're bringing up a really great point to talk about here because I think this is one thing that I didn't realize that is kind of the make or break of the ministering program is the ministering interviews and how proactive you are about those ministering interviews. So we had, in my last word, an amazing brother who was the secretary. He would schedule about, I think it was like we had 1 month of Sundays that we would do all of our ministering interviews. So he would print out a schedule, he would pass the sheets around, he would line it up 2 months in advance. Sometimes he was just like, all right, pick the Sunday that works best for you, and then throughout those 2 months leading up to that month of Sundays, he was just passing out the roll, and then after he passed out the roll, he would follow up, he would send reminders, he was constantly hounding people so that every district was in the building on that Sunday during that month. And because they had signed up for it, they knew like, oh, I better get to know these people, And so it gave them plenty of lead time beforehand to find a normal and natural way to make a connection with the families that they had assigned to them. So, but I do think that's more rare than not. As I've left that ward, I've noticed more times than not the ministering interviews don't really happen. Is what I would say. If I were a gambling man, I would wager that more times than not the ministering interviews aren't happening.
Well, and a lot of them too is like, when I used to be able to see the ministering percentages from all the wards across the state. We talked to them. What was that? Well, yeah, I talked to the so and so in the hallway at church. We're counting that as ministry, But I think the main thing that comes down to it, to your point, Hayden, that every time I've seen ministering interviews be consistent and successful, it's because there was a dedicated secretary, even a ministering secretary, who that's what they did, and they owned that process and made it happen. That's the time I've seen it be consistent, successful.
And you need like a retired high priest who's just like all day, son, who's like Captain America, who's like, I can do this all day. Yeah, let's do this.
Who
Yeah,
it was. That's who it was.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah,
and you need that. We actually got counsel from our stake president in that quorum who said, like, if you guys need to call 10 ministering secretaries that just their only assignment is just to line up the interviews, you have all the permission in the world to do that. Just whatever you need to make it easier, to make it so that it happens, do it. And I was just like, I think that's something that a lot more quorums could benefit from if they called a ton more secretaries just to make sure that all the administration was happening and the accountability was there for ministering. And I think that would help.
Ministering district, it's just, I don't know. I agree.
Yeah.
I think that is the secret to making it happen successfully and consistently.
Totally. Okay, Tanner, any more chats that we need to catch up on?
Tyler Singleton says, "Hey, that's me." LOL. So he appreciated you reading his comment on discussing
That's
it.
right. We look out for our own on this channel.
Yeah. And Didge said Tember was a Bobby Knight style leader, sounds like, on this mission. I don't know who Bobby Knight is.
I don't
Who's
know
Bobby
who
Knight?
Bobby Knight is.
I gotta Google it. Yeah.
But
Do I want to know? I hope not.
Yeah.
Leader of
Okay.
the S.
Yeah. But that's about it on the comments there.
Okay, so what are the takeaways here? In the age of home-centered church, for the average Elders Quorum, the average ministering companion, maybe we try thinking outside the box. Maybe we try ditching the home teaching framework and some of those cultural traditions that we have, and maybe we just focus on who was it? There was one person that gave a conference talk just talking about like a 1% improvement. So if you are having like 0% ministering going on in your ward, maybe just call those brethren and say, like, go find a friend, minister to that friend. 1% improvement is better than just continuing to flatline when it comes to ministering. I would say that's probably one of the takeaways. The other, call a ton of secretaries, make sure the interviews are happening because that's super important. And then I think maybe a final is, if you are a presidency, be conscientious about ministering overwhelm, and try try a different way. Maybe we try shaking things up, and maybe. I mean, I'm not saying that we forget like the less active and the inactive members or anything like that, but maybe you shift that more towards the ward missionaries. And you say, all right, until we can get the ministering program to a certain level of strength and activity, and we're ministering to our active members, maybe the ward missionaries handle the less actives for now, and then we include them into that once we are at that capacity.
I like that suggestion.
It's okay to do things in phases, and sometimes we're members would say we have to do it all right now. I think that's a great suggestion.
Well, that's how the restoration is, right? Is totally. Joseph received it in phases, right? So that's okay.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, God didn't give Joseph Smith all of D&C in the first vision.
Yeah, it didn't go from the first vision to plural marriage and like, you know.
Could you imagine? Yeah.
That would. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So if we don't have any other thoughts, I think we are getting close to time. So I think we'll probably close it out there. But until next time, I'm Hayden Holm. This is Tember Harward, Dan Ockey. We have Sam at Through the Mist. Be sure to follow him on YouTube. And then my brother Tanner. This is Salty Saints, and we'll catch you next time.